Joining us now on the John Fredericks Radio Network, I am your Godzilla of the Truth in America, is Curtis Ellis. Curtis, Chairman Emeritus of the American Jobs Alliance. Curtis also a former government official, high-ranking, I should say that right, Curtis, high-ranking government official in the U.S. Department of Labor. He had like some really fancy title, and also been with the Trump campaign like me from the beginning. He was on the transition team, and now he's a senior advisor with America First Policies and America First Policies Action, the number one political action committee for the re-election of the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. And he's with us now. Curtis, great to have you.
Hey, it's great to be here with Godzilla himself.
So, Curtis, I just can't believe the bureaucrats in Washington, the entire Democratic, Republican, Washington establishment swamp in a frenzy. We'll get to impeachment in a minute. In a frenzy over the fact that we're pulling 1,000 troops out of Syria, where we never should have been in the first place, with no endgame in sight. But Democrats, Republicans, conservative, liberals, peaceniks, warmongers, neocons, they're all coming together for a common purpose, and that's to wage war in Syria, by the way, with your kids. What have you ever seen anything like this?
Yeah, it's amazing. Bipartisan unity is something very hard to find in Washington, but Donald Trump has managed to engineer it. This is an unlikely coalition, and they're all united by the single desire to hate Donald Trump. Well, that brings the Democrats in. That brings the peaceniks in. You've got the military-industrial complex that President Eisenhower warned us against in 1960, the permanent war industry, the permanent war lobby. There's never a war they don't want to fight. Well, they don't want to fight it. They want your kids to fight it. And it's a sight to behold. Most people probably could not find Syria on a map. Congress, in fact, voted against going to war in Syria when Barack Obama wanted to do it. And so we can vote against going to war in Syria, but it's okay to deploy troops there, is apparently the illogical logic that prevails in Washington. It really is amazing. And so now the Americans have withdrawn. We've withdrawn our forces from Syria. The Kurds, we've discovered, and actually most Americans would have yet to discover what Kurds are, unless we're talking about Little Miss Muffet sitting on a tuffet or something. The Kurds have now made peace with Assad, with the government of Syria. This should be celebrated. This is a good thing. The Kurds are the stateless people. They've been stateless forever, since World War I. They never got their country. They populate parts of Iran and Syria and Iraq, and they've always been subjugated by central governments, and Syria was one of them. But now apparently they've come to an understanding with the government of Syria to let them have their autonomous region. This is what they've always wanted. And it makes perfect sense, and I think it's a good thing that they've made peace with their neighbor rather than depending on American forces to guarantee their future. I mean, why should we be halfway around the world guaranteeing the future, the safety and security of a bunch of people? Now they've come to an understanding with people they've lived next to for 1,000 years. So that's a good thing. But that's not the way they look at it in Washington.
Of course not, Curtis. So let's break this down. Here's what you have here. If just to be completely candid, right? Let's break this down, right? So
right.
Now the neocons and the warmongers in Washington who make billions of dollars off these wars are now upset that the Kurds have an alliance with Assad, even though that's the land they're in, right? So I guess they would rather have war with Assad. Well, there was a civil war and Assad won, right? We don't want to get involved. Trump said, I'm not going to get involved in regime change. He got sucked into it twice, Syria and Venezuela. Neither of them worked out for us. He ran and said, we're out of the regime change business. I don't care who's in charge of Syria. If Assad's in charge, there was a civil war, Assad won. I don't care who's back. Putin wins. Putin's had an alliance. The Russians have had an alliance with Syria for 57 years, right? Since the Second World War. That's their only warm port of entry. So they have an alliance, right? Like we have alliances.
Yep.
They have an alliance. So I mean, this thing that, Assad wins. Well, he already won. Well, Putin wins. Well, Putin's his ally. I mean, they want us to go around the world and just fight everybody and have troops stationed as cops all over the place. And we're going to get hit by IEDs and snipers. But, Curtis, it's never their kids. It's never their kids. It's middle-class, lower-income kids like mine, middle-income kids who get sucked into these wars and come home in body bags. And I was asking the question earlier all day. If your son or daughter goes there to fight this Lindsey Graham war or whatever you want to call it, and they come home maimed, what the hell did you fight for? Like if you said to them, well, you no longer have legs, but here's what you did for your country. You fought for who? Well, not really a country, a people. The Kurds? Well, what did they do? Well, they were with us in ISIS. And you fought against Assad. Well, are we at war with Assad? No. But you fought Turkey. Are we at war with them? No, they're actually an ally of ours. They're part of NATO. And now I don't have any legs.
Yeah.
Come on, Curtis.
Don't have any legs. Don't have any memory. Don't have any ability to sleep at night. This is a lovely picture here. Now that we don't have a draft, you can be sure that the children of the elites who populate Washington will never fight these wars. It's the people who live in Ohio and Michigan and Montana and all these places that the elites regard as deplorable, which fight the wars, all those suckers who cling bitterly to their guns and their Bibles and actually still believe in a country called the United States of America because they're not sophisticated enough to realize we live in a global economy and we're all global citizens now. So you can preach being a global citizen, and therefore it's our duty, our moral obligation to defend the Kurds. But actually we're not defending the Kurds. It's those stupid people who still believe in America that will make up some complicated scheme where somehow getting your legs blown off in Kurdistan is defending America.
Unbelievable.
Because, it's sick. It's sick and it's disgusting. And these are the same people that, while they're doing that, they're saying we absolutely must make a deal with China. We must have a trade deal with China. This is Trump's trade war is horrible. And so he's having a trade war with China, and that's horrible. And he's not having a war in Kurdistan, and that's horrible. That's what's horrible is these people.
Well, and I've only got 10 minutes, so we got a lot to cover. But Curtis, you and I both are in a unique position. We go to Washington in a week, and then we go back home, right? So we don't get sucked into that world. We see it, but we leave it. It's a unique position we're in. Not everybody does this, right? We get there, but then we get the hell out, right? And I live 4 hours away, and you're 4 hours away. So we're south and north. We get, and it's not like we get out and go to Northern Virginia or Montgomery County. We get out, right?
Yeah.
So then when you get out, you see reality. But for the life of you, I am shocked. I am shocked by the entire Washington inside the Beltway establishment going berserk over this. Just berserk. Like it was the end of the world.
Berserk. Like it's the end of the world. We had 100 troops, 100 Green Berets stationed in this part of Turkey, and they pulled back. And look, the media loves a war. It's just wonderful. They get to play. They put on their flak jackets and play war correspondent and pretend to be brave because we all know they're cowards. And it's just amazing. Look, these war correspondents are brave. They are, but the anchors sitting in the studio get to pretend to kind of rubs off on them, and they feel the bravery. It's just amazing. And as you said, the shifting alliances. Look, the Kurds fought against ISIS. Assad was against ISIS. He was fighting against ISIS. So it makes perfect sense that the Kurds and Assad would align. We're supposed to be upset about this? I really, and Lindsey Graham will tell you, well, now it's because of Assad and this and that. It's, ridiculous. Hillary Clinton overthrew Gaddafi in Libya, and that created the refugee crisis in Europe. If the Europeans don't want another Syrian refugee crisis where you had 1 million people marching through the Balkans to Germany from Syria, let them go to war in Turkey. Why are we picking up the tab for this in blood and treasure? Why are we fighting? Europe has far more at stake in this little dust-up in the Middle East than we do.
Let them fight it.
Do it.
Let them fight it. Instead, they're criticizing us for pulling out. I don't see any German troops. I don't see any French troops or Greece troops or Italian troops. All I see is U.S. troops. Let me say something else, Curtis. Tell me if you agree with me. I think this one thing gets Trump reelected in 2020.
Well, if people still remember it by then, but it certainly helps. It certainly helps.
They're going to remember the fact that this is the only president who stood up to the warmongers, neocons, State Department, Defense Department, Kremlinologists, whatever you have in there driving this stuff. He's the only one that stood up and said, no, I've had enough, I'm getting out. And he stood up to it, and I think it's going to go down in history as a definitely defining moment. Okay, we're with Curtis Ellis. You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network. Curtis Ellis, Senior Advisor for America First Policy's #1 Political Action Committee, defending the president in 2020, not coordinated with the campaign. Curtis, China, NBA. Yesterday, LeBron James sending out, has a press conference blasting the Houston Rockets general manager, said he didn't really know what he was talking about. China's really a good place. He said publicly, look, this is costing us hundreds of millions of dollars, and there's a lot of money to be made there. Before we send tweets, we ought to really understand what the economic impact on us is going to be. What say you?
I say he's a coward. He's a fraud. This is a man who speaks out about, I stand with Kaepernick, I kneel with Kaepernick, I stand with the Black Lives Matter, I care about racism, I care about this. He's a total fraud. He's a coward and a fraud and a sellout. He takes, how many pieces of silver to sell out his country? Mm-hmm. All he cares about is the money. Why doesn't he just put on a pimp outfit and swill the Bollinger out of the bottle and put on the bling? And because that's all he cares about. All he cares about is the money. I mean, this is disgusting. These people are they're pampered players. They are pampered entertainers. And we should pay no more attention to what they have. He has proven that we have no need to pay any more attention to what they have to say than anyone else. And they come out and look. There was a fellow from Fox Sports on with Tucker Carlson the other night who explained it very well. The NBA is owned by Nike. All of the celebrity athletes are owned by Nike. Mm-hmm. Nike manufactures its shoes in communist Vietnam and in China. Mm-hmm. And they actually make more money off of China and all this. And that's how LeBron's making his money, selling his shoes in China. Mm-hmm. And selling his shoes made in China in the United States and in China. Mm-hmm. These are the globalist networks and the globalist power networks, money networks, and that's who's paying LeBron James. And that's who's and these people don't care about freedom or liberty. And next time LeBron James opines about the lack of freedom or civil rights or some type of discrimination in the United States, remember what he said yesterday. He's a complete fraud. He doesn't understand anything. He's lecturing the Houston Rockets general manager about not understanding. He's shown his own profound lack of understanding about the way the world works.
Look, I think the Houston Rockets general manager has got balls, and he deserves a lot of credits for sending that tweet out. I mean, he's there. He saw it with his own eyes, and, he's got a right to free speech. Everybody else got a right to free speech. But, see, you only have a right to free speech if you're promoting the leftist agenda. If you're promoting anything other than that, then you need to be shut down. And
exactly.
Exactly. And although the owner probably wanted to get rid of the guy because it's costing him millions of dollars, what are you going to do, fire him because he sent a tweet? Well, you'd have to fire everybody for sending tweets. So we couldn't do it. He's stuck. And so, look, I'm a Rockets fan. Now I'm a bigger fan than ever because at least they got the chutzpah to do something. But LeBron James, what a complete joke. I mean, who cares what these people say? And he said he was uninformed. Uninformed what? Because they have slave labor, no human rights, and basically they're producing shoes by having people work for $1 a day and a bowl of rice. I mean, give me a break. They have no rules, no laws. They don't have any work protection. So, cost of production is low, and that's how they make millions of dollars.
They have a million Muslims locked up in concentration camps. They hook these people up to machines and harvest their organs while they're still alive. This is what he is defending. If he can't have the clarity to see that this is a horror on a scale that we've never seen before in the history of the world, he needs to get his eyes examined.
Unbelievable. All right, I've only got a minute and a half. The impeachment clown show continues on. Now we're getting they threw Matt Gaetz, congressman who's on the Judiciary Committee, they threw him, Adam Schiff threw him out of the depositions. No transparency, no transcripts. What are they hiding?
They're hiding the fact that there's no evidence to impeach. There's no evidence that supports this CIA agent's initial complaint that set off this whole feeding frenzy in Washington. That's what they're hiding. They don't want, and Adam Schiff said, we are conducting our Star Chamber proceedings in secret because we don't want anyone to know what's going on. We don't want the president or the Republicans to see what's happening. Mm-hmm. He's very clear about that. He's got more transparency, but I think he just stumbled into that. He's a complete fool, and his mouth got ahead of his brain, but that's nothing new. So they're hiding the fact there is no evidence. There's no evidence. All the evidence points to the fact that this whole thing is manufactured. And this is the one part of the manufacturing sector that's alive and well in America, and that's manufacturing false claims against President Trump. And it's look, we've got the ambassador saying there was no quid pro quo. Ambassador saying Ukrainians saying we didn't even know our arms, this aid package was on hold. So if they don't even know the aid package is on hold, how can there be a quid pro quo? There ain't no quid, right? So, and you read the transcript, the president's asking them to look into the 2016 election, the role of the Ukraine in fiddling with our fiddling with the Democratic National Committee. So,
and now you've got Hunter Biden comes out on ABC yesterday, another one of the fake newsers, and says, "Well, I really regret the decision I made. It was bad judgment." Yeah. Meantime, you took the $35 million, right? You took the $1.5 billion from the Chinese company. So you took the money, and now it's like, oh, well, it was bad judgment. I hurt my father. Yeah, but you took the money. Why'd you give the money back?
And he still owns a 10% stake in that Chinese investment fund, which invested in companies that are, again, imprisoning people in China, again, stole our F-16, F-35 fighter jet plans so China could build its own version.
Right.
That had been cited for espionage, a nuclear corporation, China
Right.
Nuclear. He's invested in all that, still has a 10% stake in all of that. This guy, maybe he should be brought up on espionage charges. I don't know.
John Fredericks Radio Network. Curtis, Democratic debate tonight. It'll be interesting to see if any of the Democrats actually has the onions to go after Biden on any of this stuff. I doubt it. John Fredericks Radio Network. Curtis Ellis, we're out of time.